Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Pros and Cons. I'm Presley, one of your hosts,
And I'm Carlos.
and welcome to our podcast, Pros and Cons. Now, before we get any deeper into it, let's just introduce ourselves a little bit. So, I've been going to conventions ranging from Comic Cons to anime conventions for the past 10 years now. And one of my main cosplays is Spider-Man. I love cosplaying as Spider-Man, but I'm trying to branch out now and do something different. Last time I did Wolverine, but I definitely want to branch out and start doing anime-related cosplays.
And I'm Carlos. I've been going to cons. Dude, I think half of what you've gone through because hold on. My first year, I went 2018. No, wait. Dude. No, dude, I'm hitting Unc status, bro. I'm not a half. I'm like 7 years, dude. I've been to cons for about 7 years now. That's a lot. Of some cosplays that I usually do. I'm kind of opposite of Presley, where I have done mostly anime cosplays. I'm trying to branch out as well. I've done Spidey cosplay with him over at WonderCon. With that, we're just, as you can see, we're just two dudes that have been in the con scene for a while now. And the whole point of why we're kind of talking about all this is because we wanted to share experiences about it all with you guys and everyone else. Since, I think that not everyone's con experience is the same. So we do plan to talk a lot about this or talk to con goers and their experiences and everyone else around the scene, vendors, maybe even actors or whatnot, just anybody that kind of participates in the scene, because I think that not everyone has the same experience.
Yeah, that's basically what we're trying to do over here. We just want to share our experiences to anyone that listens to this podcast and talk to people that are invested into the scene of conventions. Like Carlos mentioned, vendors, photographers, cosplayers. But to move on from this, we're going to start talking about the comparison between large conventions and smaller conventions and which ones you should consider if this is your first time or heck, maybe if you're a veteran like me. So, smaller cons, just talk about our experiences with that. One of the pros of going to smaller cons is that there is a lot less foot traffic. You won't deal with a lot of people at smaller cons, and this could be really good for first-time goers if they want to ease themselves into the scene first before fully committing to a larger con like Anime Expo or Comic Con.
Definitely. Um, I think that they also have I think the communities of those are a lot more tight knit. Like the one that we went to recently, anime. I say recently, but that was last year, bro. It was Anime Pasadena. That one's definitely, I think, a smaller con. It kind of teetered between small and large because I think its recent years is getting a little bigger, but it's still at a very small convention center. Like that community is very tight knit, especially when like you go to like the small events that happen after the convention, like their official after party. I do think that is definitely like one of the places you want to go, especially if you want to get like easier interactions with actors or artists, because usually people, obviously not to say like, that you won't have a line because, people want to go see people, but the lines usually tend to be smaller and it's more likely that you'll be able to see them because I think at larger cons, they have like ticketing systems or et cetera, et cetera. But no, it's just simply line up and eventually you get to see them if they're still there. Most actors do tend to stay after just to kind of meet other fans, but it's not always the case. And I think the biggest hitter, and I think you agree with me on this one, Presley, is cheaper ticket prices and the parking, bro. Because and if it is for anybody, if you haven't really gone to a con scene, you're usually gonna want to spend some money there, whether that be on food or items you see that you like. You're gonna want to spend money, and if you are looking to spend money at a convention, and it's a smaller con, you're less likely to spend that money on parking or a ticket price. Now, that's not to say that all small cons have small ticket prices or small parking prices, because some are a little pricey depending on which one you go to, but they're more likely to have smaller ticket prices and free parking. Usually. Usually.
Yeah, usually for the most part they do, but definitely attending to the cheaper ticket prices. I recently just bought my ticket for Anime Riverside, and that was only about $50 for both for 2 days. And comparing that to something like Anime Expo, where I think the tickets are 150 for 4 days. Granted, it is you're paying for 4 days, but still that's an extra $100, and that's not even accounting in the shipping fees because you get your badge shipped to you, unlike at Riverside where you can just go in and pick it up. I even forgot about this topic of hotels. Hotels are, for the most part, at least a little cheaper when you go to these smaller conventions. I recently was checking hotel prices for Riverside, and they're ranging about 100 and like 199 to like 210 a night, which isn't terrible. It's pretty good when you compare it to ticket prices to, let's say, a San Diego Comic Con. For people listening in that go to San Diego Comic Con, you would know about Hotel Apocalypse, and just trying to get a hotel that is close by the con, you will probably be spending about 1.5K for the entire duration that you're there. If you're there for the entire 4 days, it's not cheap. Especially for Comic Con, it's insane. But thankfully, they have like a shuttle system, so you can park somewhere and just do that. That's the hack I do, at least, so I don't have to spend thousands of dollars for a hotel.
That's real, dude. I even think about that. Yeah, because usually people opt to either A, stay with a friend that lives near the convention, or group up to kind of split the cost of a hotel room, because hotel rooms are pricey. I didn't know that they got that pricey for Comic Con. I know that they're pricey for AX. Like for 3 of the 4 days, it's like in total, I think about like almost 1.4. Yeah, for 3 days, dude. 3 days. Not even a full four. Yeah, I know some people opt for Airbnbs, but to Airbnbs, I would say be careful, as sometimes the Airbnb hosts might cancel it on you, which has happened to me and my friends, which a whole different thing. But again, these are like problems to have with, um, larger cons. Smaller cons usually aren't multiple days, but you do have the rare exception where you have Riverside and a few other ones where it's like you want to stay near the convention, which is like you're probably hearing this. It's like this is a lot of money already. Like if I'm spending $50 on a ticket and like maybe like $20 on parking, like how much are we spending on food? It's completely valid concern. And I'm not here to tell you that going to conventions is cheap, because it's not always cheap. It will be a little pricey sometimes, but there are ways to save money if you're smart about it. For example, you guys can carpool and go with friends and just split the cost, or have a friend if it's multiple days. Hey, me and this person will cover the cost this day, and you cover the cost this day, or et cetera, et cetera. You can always work this out with friends, or if you're going by yourself, it's always public transportation, which I would always highly recommend, especially if you're not planning to be there all day. I think those are good ideas, but I think people don't really spend most of their day at a con, especially if it's a smaller one. I don't know. Like, would you say that people do spend more time at a smaller con press?
It definitely depends on the person and their interests. For myself at least, I don't see myself spending the entire day at a con. Let's say I don't ever plan on spending it from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So just let's do 12 hours. I don't ever plan, even for stuff like Comic Con, I'm not really even there for 10 to 10. For smaller cons, I'm like there from like 10 to 5, smaller venue. And if there's nothing that I want to do in that particular day, I just kind of want to walk around, see cosplays and stuff like that. I'm bound to just spend a lot less time there. But if there's someone that I want to see, for example, last year at Riverside, I wanted to go see Yuri Lowenthal, the voice actor for Spider-Man. I know I was going to be there for a while because he had a longer line. So I spent a majority of my day there, but thankfully I was at the hotel that was nearby it, so it wasn't too big of a problem if I got thirsty or I got hungry. But to move on from the small con aspect, we're gonna start talking about larger cons, stuff like Anime Expo or San Diego Comic Con or even things like New York Comic Con. So one of the pros for that is that there are more offsites. And I know you think to yourself, well, what are offsites? I don't like if you've only been going to smaller cons, they usually don't have offsites. But what offsites are is that usually a company, let's say HBO or Crunchyroll, they will have events going on outside of the convention where you don't need a badge to attend this event. And usually for the most part, it's just they do like challenges. I know Crunchyroll for San Diego Comic Con one time they did like a push up challenge or something. I think it had to do something with like One Punch Man. And usually for the most part, they have freebies that they give you for just going in and participating. And all this without a badge. And even if you do have a badge, it leaves a lot of room for you just to go do something that isn't part of the convention center. It's for me personally, I've had a lot of fun with offsites. They're just a good way to unwind, especially if you're somewhere where it's going to be really cramped and packed, like San Diego Comic Con. It just gives you some time to breathe and just not feel so confined.
Definitely. And I think that the more offsides kind of attributes to the larger ticket price. So because usually people are kind of daunted, like, what? I'm gonna pay 150 for a badge to a convention that lasts 4 days, and it's like I understand that, like it's a lot of money. It's like buying a new pair of shoes or buying two Nintendo games. It's definitely a lot, and like I won't sit here and tell you, oh, it's not effective, like because it is, but there are benefits to it. Like I remember one year for Anime Expo, if you and this one did require a badge for an X badge, you could if you went to the hotel nearby, they were actually giving free food. So that took away the cost. Like if you were a Crunchyroll member and you had an AX badge, you walked in, you show them your Crunchyroll account, and they were like, wait, you have a Crunchyroll account? Okay, cool. You come in and they let you get food for free. Dude, it was crazy. That was a lifesaver. Like, do you know how expensive food is? Especially, I think this is like maybe 1 or 2 years ago. 2 years ago. It was honestly one of the best experiences. And like and it's just like a one isolated thing. Imagine that for like other stuff. Like I know that they had Hype Blend. And I'm only speaking for Anime Expo because I actually haven't been to San Diego Comic Con yet. But from what I've heard, they have some pretty cool ones. Like the one I think I liked that I heard recently was the Abbott Elementary one. That one was really cool that they had I think this past year, right? But again, like that's what attributes to that like increased ticket price. You know, like it's that like we're gonna give more freebies, but like you're gonna have to pay a little more is what's basically saying, which is what you wouldn't see at a smaller con. That'd be something you'd miss out.
And one of the other aspects of, one of the pros of going to these larger cons is that you have bigger chances of meeting celebrities and even social media influencers. Not to say that you can't meet celebrities at these smaller conventions. Like I said, I met Yuri Lowenthal at Anime Riverside. But for bigger celebrities, not just voice actors, but also actors now. I think one time I saw Terry Crews. I didn't talk to him, but I just saw him just like in a crowd, or any actors that are going to be in upcoming movies soon. Like I know last year, since it was Deadpool and Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, Channing Tatum, they were all there at Comic Con. But that doesn't even account to something like Hall H. Hall H is the main thing of Comic Con. You can ask anybody that goes to San Diego Comic Con, ask them about Hall H, and they'll give you like an entire paragraph of it. But that even goes for the smaller rooms that we have at Comic Con, where it can be video games or TV shows. You can meet all these actors and actresses that you never thought you would be able to meet. And another aspect of these larger cons, and I think you can test this for me, Carlos, is that there are a lot more cosplays, and not even just more cosplays, but there's a lot more impressive cosplays. Not to say any cosplay is not impressive, but they're more like executed professionally, entirely 3D printed or entirely made out of craft foam. It's just insane.
Literally. I think that bigger cons are definitely the place to see those. Not to say that like you won't show the smaller cons because you will. You could see them, but at larger cons you're more likely to see that because people see these bigger cons as the place to show up and show out. You know. So I remember one year, I think the same year that Across the Spider Verse, right? That's the second movie, right? Some guy came dressed as Hobie from Spider Man, and dude, his thing was insane. He had like scribbled like marked on his face, like almost accentuate like the comic. So yeah, this is definitely something you'll see more at a bigger con. Yeah, I think bigger cons do have a lot of benefits to them, especially if you are someone that want to see more out of it. Like it's definitely a little more, but you get a little more bang for your buck. Although your wallet might hurt a little bit from the parking. But again, if you guys remember to kind of, you know, planning with some friends, maybe split the cost, it should be a little lighter on your wallets altogether. And which brings on to like something that we do want to talk about when it comes to whether it's a large or a small con and how to prep for a convention. Because there's different ways to prep for conventions depending on your situation. Now, like if you're like me and you're not necessarily looking to spend that much, and I'll give you my take on it and then let Press give his take. But for me, I like to save money so that I can spend more money at the convention if I want to. Not to say I'm going to, but in case I want to. What I do is I usually have a group of friends and we end up either carpooling or prepping by making sandwiches if we're planning to be there at a time at the convention just to have food. Because it's like, although some food at the convention is fire, because there is some fire food. You know what I'm talking about, Presley. But not all food hits the same, I would say. So I would say it's definitely in your best interest to just prep in case you aren't looking to buy anything or don't find anything appetizing. Especially if you kind of be at the con for a while, and then just personal needs. If dudes, those usually don't have that many personal needs. But I know that that some, like if you are a girl, you have to pack stuff in case it's that time of the month for you. It's always important to carry essentials with you. Some conventions I've seen, I actually this recently, that some conventions actually do have stations where they have things for people to get, like that they need for themselves. But don't always rely on that. Just make sure to always carry stuff that you might need. And aside from that, is just remember to keep your personal stuff safe. Although it is a convention and everyone there's pretty chill, always remember that people might be looking to make an easy grab, and it's always in your best interest to make sure that you aren't that easy grab. Especially since if you're carrying anything valuable, whether that be a prop, your phone, your wallet, anything like that, even things you've bought in. Like if you have the opportunity to kind of go back to your car to drop off the stuff, you should definitely do that. Or if you're a photographer, only break the equipment you're planning to use and then put it away if you're not going to use it for the majority of the time that you're going to be there. Because at bigger cons, especially, it's a pain to kind of be carrying that much stuff around you because you are going to be doing some walking. Smaller cons is less of a pain, because not that much foot traffic. You can walk in and out. But at least that's what I see as being a good thing. And aside from that, I just recommend bringing a portable charger at all costs. Bring a portable charger. Don't think, even if you think your phone's not going to die, you never know. And it's always better to be safe than sorry.
Definitely bring a portable charger. I have been in many places at conventions where I did not have access to a portable charger, and when I wanted to use my phone, or if I need to use my phone for anything like necessary, like calling someone or like just taking pictures with somebody, I did not have access to my phone. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess that sucks. Sucks to suck. I can't do that. But if you're cosplaying and some important things to bring in like your con bag, if I had to say, I'd definitely say something like safety pins or bobby pins or even hair ties. If you're wearing a wig, you might need these so you can hide your hair. Definitely bring super glue. Super glue is super important in case something falls off of your cosplay or you need to repair something. But for things like food, you definitely want to bring a water bottle, especially if it's during the summertime. It's going to be super hot. You don't want to get dehydrated. And especially if you are in a cosplay like Spider-Man, where you will be sweating profusely underneath the face shell, it is good to just bring some water so you can just stay hydrated. Something like trail mix or protein bars or even like fruit leather, these things are super important so you don't starve at the convention or in many cases fork over $20 to get some food that normally would cost maybe like $10 or less. Or if you're like me and sometimes gum can help out a lot. I know me personally, I don't get super hungry if I'm chewing on something, but that's just me. I'm weird like that. And charging cables. Don't bring a portable charger without the charging cable. You need it. And if you are going by yourself, if maybe it's like your first time at a larger convention, you're going to by yourself, I would suggest maybe bringing some earbuds just so you can pass the time while you're in line for something. Or if you just need a break from the entire convention, noise canceling headphones are getting cheaper now, so you can just get one of those and just chill out somewhere for a bit. And for something like personal hygiene, I would recommend hand sanitizer, obviously. I think this goes without saying. Deodorant. We don't have to talk. I mean, we'll probably talk about the aspect of deodorant and the con scene sooner or later. But bring deodorant, a first aid kit. If you tend to burn easily, sunscreen, and I think too for like this last bit, bring some cash. A lot of vendors for these conventions sometimes don't take card, or you could get a better deal with cash. I know personally from my experience, when you pay with card, there's like an additional $2 in taxes, which doesn't seem like a lot, but then you start spending a lot at the con. $2.75 here, $2.75 there. Next thing you know, you buy like 5 things. Boom, you've already spent $14 in taxes. It's just all of it adds up.
No, dude, for real. It does add up. And like I know these seem like small things, but I promise that at the end of the day, if you do any of these things, they'll make your life, any experience at a con, way easier, or even maybe even better. And it's also important. I think also the mention of bringing cash is important because sometimes uh the Wi-Fi will go down in a convention center and they will not take card because their little cube thing, which lets you tap, will not work. And although it's, like I personally don't really carry cash around. Usually I try to carry at least 20 to 40 bucks with me just in case I do see something I like and they don't take card because it's not working, then like, it's just a general good idea. But, besides prepping for conventions, I know that Presley earlier mentioned the thing with deodorant and just kind of experiences around that. I think that's something that we do want to touch on just to kind of give another look, not just from like the benefits or the pros and cons of these conventions, but kind of giving you our personal anecdotes about our experiences at cons.
Yeah, for sure. So a great like con experience for me was meeting Steve Downes, the voice of Master Chief. Since I grew up with the Halo games, and I still arguably play Halo to this day, even if it is a bit controversial to play Halo Infinite. Meeting Steve Downes was just an amazing experience. I even met Jen Taylor too, the voice of Cortana. So just hearing these iconic voice actors, or even meeting them, just being like, "Hey, I've been a big fan of your character ever since I was a kid." So finally meeting them was just a huge moment for me. And not to say I haven't had bad experiences. So I think for most of my convention adventures, I've had amazing experiences. But even then, at places like Comic Con, it's just very packed. It is very packed like sardines in there sometimes, especially if you go into the exhibit hall and you're thinking like, how is this place even fitting in this much people? It's insane. I'm shoulder to shoulder with the person next to me, and I can't even move forward because the person in front of me has a stroller, or they're just like there's a line to something, and it's just backing up everyone. And I mentioned this previously before about food, but very expensive food. If you've been to San Diego Comic-Con, you know what I'm talking about. If you go to the back of the exhibit hall, up the escalators, you will find a pizza spot. Something like Grandma's Pizza. And you go, you go in there, you start smelling it. Ooh, that smells good. It smells super good. I think I'm gonna get a slice, and it's like deep dish pizza. And you go over and get it. Okay, that'll be $20. How I could have gotten like 2 hot and readies for these $20. Like, and I'm just getting one measly slice of deep dish pizza. This is insane. To like end my like recap, sometimes you just meet some weird people. Not to say that weird people go to conventions, but sometimes people that are creeps, because creeps are at conventions. This is not something new. But for my personal experience, I have met a few weird people that they're just kind of obnoxious. They're kind of loud, and they just don't know personal boundaries. So they're just kind of in your face a lot, and they don't respect you. Just a lot of those things.
Definitely, dude. Especially on the last part, it's a very real thing. Um, in some standards, I think because I'm a dude, I'm kind of lucky that I don't have to deal with too many. Not to say that I still don't deal with them, but yeah, it's something. Now I say that like that's the entire scene. It's just a select group of people, but that kind of act that way. But yeah, on my end, for good experiences that I've had, I remember going to I went to AX a few years back when the anime Love is War was very big, and I remember my friends dressed up as the characters, and we all went and we dressed as like the main cast. We went to the panel. Everyone noticed us, so they started like asking for pictures with us. It was pretty fun. And then when we went to take a picture after the panel, with like they're like a banner near the Aniplex booth. We went to go take a picture with it. We thought it'd be cute to do like to make the poses they do on the poster cover. We actually ran into the actress who voiced Kaguya uh in the Japanese original language. She was very nice. Her and then the series director, they started saying like he started saying like, "Oh, Kaicho, Kaicho," which just means president. Because they saw that we had the entire cast and they took a picture with us. It's definitely one of my favorite memories from Anime Expo. Something that I regret, and this leads back into earlier, but make sure you carry a Sharpie. You never know who you run into. Maybe you want to get something signed. If I had a Sharpie, I would have had her signed by Kaguya, what's it called, plushie that I had with me. Oh, it was such a mistake that I didn't have it. I definitely regret that. That was such a good experience from me on my end, and um, that being a very positive experience. I've also experienced some pretty bad experiences. Um, I remember one time we went to a con. We actually held a panel at LA Comic Con once, and we had a guest come in, and they made everybody else feel very uncomfortable in making a comment um, about another cosplayer there right before we even started the panel, and we had to ask them to leave, and we had to actually ask a staff member to help us get them to leave because they were just making people uncomfortable. And that person that made uncomfortable was actually one of my friends who was on the panel, and it was honestly a very interesting experience. Like that was something that I think. Um, it was one of the times where that saying of like, if you see something, you say something, it was very much came to effect because, oof, man, some people just have the audacity, you know? But everything has its good and bad takes to it, I would say, or sides to it, sorry. So I think it's just important to remember that, especially when you're on the outside looking in, especially with all like these negative stigmas of surrounding the scene, which I understand. Like I do understand these stereotypes because there are people like that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that represents the whole. Which is why I pressed you earlier when you talked about like things that we bring, which include personal hygiene stuff. It's important to kind of practice that because um, as a community, I think it's important to make sure that we do the best to represent ourselves in the best light that we can. But it's obviously that we'll have people that misrepresent us and kind of act out in a certain way. I would say, which is all yeah, yeah, it's it's a lot. And one other bad experience I want to talk about is because when Presley talked about overpriced food. Ooh, let me tell you about overpriced food. Having a drink. So imagine you're me at AX and you want to get a drink. It's boiling outside. It's like maybe like upper 90s, almost 100. You want a drink. Now there's a water fountain. Be like, maybe I want to indulge, get another drink. You go to the drink booth. Guess what? Drinks at least $20, and they put a lot of ice in there, bro. You can't even ask for light ice. It is crazy, like what they charge for some stuff sometimes. And I'm not saying don't try it because some of those stuffs are worth the money. Like I'm not gonna lie, they are pretty good, but it is pricey. It definitely is. But yeah, but aside our con experiences, we hope you guys are able to kind of go out and maybe even do your own experiences and just tell us about those if we where we had to post either comments or something.
Yes, but please learn from our experiences. All right, so to kind of segue into our next topic, I think this is something that me and Carlos can both attend to, and a lot of the listeners out there is burnout. And burnout was specifically just cosplaying. I know for me personally, I've just recently experienced this just because For the longest time, I've been going to conventions. I've only been cosplaying as Spider-Man. Not to say I don't like cosplaying as Spider-Man. I love that. He's one of my favorite characters. And dressing up as him is always a lot of fun. But you do get to the point of just exhaustion and you are just done. Like you don't want to do it anymore. You're just kind of sick and tired of it. And that's why I started did my cosplay as Wolverine, because I just really wanted to try something different. And ever since after that, I'm like, oh, okay. It kind of flipped a switch in my head of like, oh, I can cosplay with other people, and people will like it, and I don't have to sit here and be like, okay, I'm gonna be a one trick and just be Spider Man all the time. I can go as other people, and it's a lot of fun. And I do think a lot of that comes from the need of being perfect and your costume being perfect. Take it from someone who has made a lot of Spider-Man costumes. You take a look at Tobey Maguire's costume and Andrew Garfield's costume. Something for me is like, okay, these web lines aren't small enough; they are too thick. Or hey, this specific like puff paint style that I'm doing is not working, and my costume doesn't look exactly how it does on the big screen. Like it doesn't look the same. So I'm starting to beat myself up and be like, okay, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I think I'm just kind of just gonna quit. Uh, but it's always just nice to take breaks whenever you're experiencing burnout. And this doesn't only go for cosplay, but I think this goes for creatives in a general sense, especially for me and Carlos, who are both very involved in the creative aspect.
Definitely. And a small tidbit on what you're saying, Presley. We're not adversely saying that like you shouldn't necessarily not want to do better, right? If that's something you want to do, then do it. We're not saying don't do it or like, it's like, oh, something to be scared of. There's always room for improvement if you want to kind of improve your cosplay. But what we're saying is you should never be ashamed to start somewhere and wear something that you just want to wear. It's just do it. Like at the end of the day, if you're like, oh, I didn't like the cosplay, I could do better, that's just room for improvement. You can always make something better, which is something that me and Presley, again, as like we see ourselves as a bit of creatives. And I think everyone else as a cosplayer in the scene would think of themselves in some sense, right? Is that although you did great today, you could always do better tomorrow. And I think you talking about that bubble of like feeling yourself almost placed in a bubble when you do one thing and being a one trick pony. I think it's so interesting because people often put themselves in a box and then it's hard for them to get outside of that box, even though they put themselves in the box in the first place. And sometimes that might not be the case. Maybe they just kind of fell into it or whatnot. But I think, especially with cosplay, which is something that I always recommend people always try to do at least once in a lifetime because it's something fun. You're just going to dress up. You used to do it as a kid, going in a costume. What's wrong with you just kind of going out to dress out as a character you like, you know? Because I think that all ties into the pressure that you might feel online or from other people from seeing you. But at the end of the day, everyone's there maybe thinking the same thing. It's like, oh, will people like my cosplay? Will people like, blah, blah. Whether it's a cosplay they just bought off the internet, cosplay that they built, or, you know, any of the above. Everybody has that same thought process. And hey, if you feel that what would help you feel more confident in what you're wearing, next time you see a cosplay, you like tell that person, like, hey, I love your cosplay. Because who knows, someone might tell you that down the line, and that's going to help your confidence. I know that's happened to me, I think, a few times. I don't know if you had that experience, Presley, where you made something, and you're like, or you wore something, you're like, "Ah, I don't think I look good. And then someone came up to you and was like, hey, dude, I love your cosplay.
Oh,
I don't know if you ever had that experience.
yeah, I've had a ton of experiences like that where it's like, hey, your mask looks super cool. Hey, your facial looks really nice. Where'd you get it? Or like, how'd you make it? And it always just feels really nice to know that your work doesn't go unnoticed, or even if you're just feeling particularly really down on that day, just having a simple person just come up to me and be like, "Hey, I really like your costume. I think it looks really good," or them asking to take a picture with you. It helps out a lot because I do think for a lot of cosplayers, even though I'm not a specific cosplay figure in the community, there is a lot of pressure on you that you see on social media. Like, I know for me, sometimes I think I make something really good, and I'm like, "Oh, this looks super good. I'm so proud of this work." But then, since I follow other cosplayers, something will pop up, and maybe it's in the same costume, and it looks 10 times better. And I'm just like, "Oh, okay. So theirs look better than mine. So I don't even really want to work on this anymore." But it's always hard to get out of that hole that you're in when it comes to that because you start comparing yourself to the other person and you're like, okay, I don't make stuff as good as they do. But it's you have to appreciate the small things and be like, hey, I did this thing and I can only compare it to myself and compare it to the person I was before. And you can just keep reassuring yourself, like, hey, this is great work. I did great work. And especially because it's my work.
Exactly. That last part specifically, bro, because it's your work. And I think that's important to show because it's almost like a form of self-expression through cosplay. And which I think that a lot of people should get into doing. Like I know that for me, I usually for the most part just kind of buy a pre-made a cosplay. That's what I usually do. And then I remember that one year I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And I started buying stuff for a cosplay for a Power Ranger cosplay that I made. And what I did was I actually had to make some of the stuff for it because it was really expensive. I'm not gonna lie. Dropping 1K for a Power Ranger costume was a lot of time for me. So I didn't think it was a good idea. So instead I bought pieces of it and other stuff I made myself or tried to redo in some way. And I think it came out okay. Is it perfect? No. But for what it is, I think I did a great job. At the time at least. You know? I think even though it's not necessarily perfect, it's something that I enjoyed doing and I enjoyed the end product of in a way, right? And I in for better or for worse express myself in a way that I haven't been able to express myself in. Because I feel like and maybe this is a little I don't know if you want to call it cringy or what, but I think that as like a person, when I was younger, I loved Power Rangers growing up, and I was like, dude, I always want to dress up like one of them. Me doing that, that's fulfilling a childhood dream of mine that I wanted to do. And that to me gave me something that I couldn't have gotten anywhere else. And I don't know if you want to chime in here too, Presley, but that's just how that helped me kind of self express myself in a way.
Oh yeah, definitely. For my personal experience in cosplaying as Spider-Man, when you go into these cosplays, you almost want to embody the character. You want to become one with the character that you are portraying. And, you got to kind of get yourself into that mindset. And what helped me a lot was because I actually wore a mask and it helped me, for a second just be like, okay, I'm I'm not Presley today. I am Spider-Man. And it helped me out a lot, especially being an introverted person. It started to help me become a lot more outgoing and actually, talk to people and not be so afraid to approach other cosplayers and be like, hey, can I get a picture with you? Or, hey, what's your Instagram? I would love to follow you. Your work is amazing. It just helps a lot with that because you always have this underlying fear that you are going to be judged for basically everything that you do. You especially for cosplayers where it's like, "Oh, okay, someone's judging me on this one little part where I messed up and I know no one else will see it, but I see it." So I know that if I can see it, then everyone else can see it, but in reality, no one's really, like, looking at for, like, Spider-Man, "Oh, your toe? You see that toe shape right there? That's not the same as it was in the movie, so therefore your costume sucks." Or, "There's a little splatter right here, therefore your costume sucks." It's just like no one's bothering to, like, look at those fine details. Unless you're going to a cosplay competition, which is a completely different story that we'll touch upon later. But, and I do think this cosplay just leads to a way of expressing and being yourself. which I think is something that is kind of frowned upon now at conventions. Because, with the rise of cringe culture and, clip farming, yeah, a lot of quote unquote content creators will come to these conventions and basically just go to make fun of people.
It's true. And I think that I won't sit here and be like, oh well, and be a hypocrite and say like, oh, I don't laugh at those videos because I do. I think, look, it's like you go to a comedy stand up, you're still gonna see things that make jokes and stuff, but it's just poking fun at oneself. You have to remember that those jokes aren't representative of that group. Yes, it might represent some people in it, right? But it's not necessarily all those people. And that's why I think this idea of nonchalance and it's like, oh, I wouldn't cosplay because, I don't want to be cringe or weird or whatever. It's like, no, dude, like you're kind of locking yourself away from doing anything. You're gonna sit there and just kind of you're gonna be more judgmental of everyone because they're doing things that you don't have the courage to do. And I'm not saying that like you don't have like not in a way that sounds negative, but kind of in the sense that like you are doing yourself a disservice of doing what these other people are doing instead of locking yourself behind a wall where you're walling yourself off from doing anything that brings you any personal interest. That's why I think more than anything, it's as Presley said, it's very important that you be expressive and you be yourself. Just do it. At the end of the day, it's just one day out of the year. You're gonna dress up in this costume. Yeah, and maybe you'll feel like the character, like how Presley mentioned he was when he's Spider-Man or whatnot. But let me tell you that at the end of the day, you're gonna leave whoever you dressed up as being a little happier. Um, I know that for me and my friends dressed up as the Mario characters, walking around AX with that kind of cosplay, kind of had people come up to us, even little kids, and be like, "Oh my god, it's Mario!" And it's obviously you're not Mario or Luigi or whatever, but those kids think you are. You are making someone else's day better, and in turn, it's making your day better because you're like, "Whoa, like I made someone's life better in a way," or because I decided to dress up as this thing to this day or whatnot. All this to say, don't be afraid. Be yourself and take the leap to let yourself express things that you like. I think that is something that we as a community and people outside as a community, not even just isolate to the anime community, are missing out on. Be interested in stuff. Be okay with showing that stuff. And if anybody judges you for that, it's their loss. They just don't want to show what they're into. And I'm not saying all this so you can go out and harass people and do stuff like that would be harassing. Like a few years ago, we had a guy who would run and jump at people and doing like a bit with like, "Oh, Nezuko," and then he would jump at them. Keep in mind that that guy actually did for I think for some people he for his videos, unless I'm correct me if I'm wrong, everybody knows, but last I checked, he did ask those people if he could film those videos and be like, "Hey, can I do this?" And he would do it. Now, I'm not saying that you should go do this, right? Because everyone has their own way of doing it. And some people are just doing it for content or whatnot. What I'm saying is don't be afraid to show that you're into something. That's all I'm saying. Do not do yourself the disservice of locking what you like behind closed doors. Because that is a life that I think no one wants to live. It's a very sad and very closed off life. But to, I guess, not sound as depressed or bring a tone back a bit, just remember that when you're going to a convention, you're not the only one with these thoughts in your head. Everyone has the same thoughts. So just be mindful, be kind, and you'll receive the same in turn.
Just to echo that. Not even for cosplaying, but even just if you're going as a normal goer, convention goer, and it's your first time, you might be scared. You might be scared that you're being judged. Just go there and just have fun. At the end of the day, these are what conventions are for. Conventions are for fun. I think at the end of the day, that's for all that what really matters.
At the end of the day, our job at this podcast is just to tell you what we do for fun and what others do for fun and why they think it's fun so you can see why it's fun. And maybe even think about trying this for fun. A lot of fun's in that sentence. That's about it what we have for our topics today. We want to kind of end this with a small blurb, just talk about what we have hopes for this podcast.
Yeah. So to end things off, we really hope that you guys learned a few things from this. Hopefully that you'll tune into our next episode. Uh, we do hope to have more guests on, but just for our first episode, until you get accustomed with your hosts, we just kind of want to do ones where you guys get to know us. But we do hope to have on like voice actors, other cosplayers, vendors, photographers, anyone that's involved in the cosplay or convention scene. And it even goes to you guys. If you guys feel like you guys want to be on this podcast, you guys can leave a comment down below, and we'll reach out and see if we can arrange something.
Definitely. We're always open to having new cosplayers on the podcast. It's always something that we're into. Or even vendors or actors or panelists or people that volunteer and help at these conventions. Because again, everyone's experience at a convention is very different from one another. But with that being said, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you guys look forward to our next episode, which we do have a guest plan for. We plan to get their opinions to the con scene. But until then, this has been your host.
I'm Presley.
And I'm Carlos.
And this has been Pros and Cons. Catch you guys in the next one.